This artwork is about storms and dusk. That's because my dad took me out when I was a little girl, and he'd heard I was afraid of storms. So we were on the edge of a lake, and the storm went round and round for a lot of time. So the dog's teeth were chattering, and my teeth were chattering, and my mother's teeth were chattering. So he came and got me late at night when there was a storm, and he took me in my little nightgown down the dock and had me watch a storm. And I now see storms like symphonies, and there's a rise in tension, and eventually there's big drama, and then it's over and you're all relaxed. So it's just like a symphony. Well, you know, most people do roads like sort of like snakes. They wander and go back and forth, and mine don't. And it took me a long time to realize why I do a lot of roads like trapezoids. And I finally figured out that's probably another story about my wonderful dad, in that we flew rather than drive places because he knew how to fly a variety of aircraft. And when you're a little kid and you're maybe even allowed in the co-pilot seat in a small plane, when you're coming down for a landing or when you're taking off, the runway looks just like how I do them. So I guess this is an ode to my father today, but I like roads that look like you're taking off or landing. Now, when I was 15, I actually soloed, but I didn't carry on with my attempt to get a license. Things changed in my life. I probably will get a ticket right after somebody sees this video. But what I do is I have an old camera with a wonderful zoom. And what I do is if I'm out on like the high prairie, high desert areas, I will take photographs of storms because you have this magnificent sweep of land all around you and often very little traffic. I've been known to drive through blizzards where everything was white except the inside of my car, just like Matrix movie. And so I hold my camera up and I take pictures, not looking through the viewfinder or even the little plate that shows you the image, and I just take a whole bunch of them, and usually when I sort through them, one will be what I intended to take a photograph of. So when I travel delivering my shows, I may take as many as 8,000 photographs because you don't pay any money for digital. Yeah. And I have a lot of storage sticks, but I just sort through them until I get the ones I want, and then a piece of work comes. Maybe it takes me a couple of years at looking at that image before I decide what I want to do. But I want people to love storms. And I was told twice recently that people see my storms as tranquil, which is interesting to me because I see them as drama, but I love them so much that maybe that comes across too. I source my images only from my photographs. It may take me a long time to realize exactly how I'm going to interpret them. Some people will think that they're exact, but they're interpreted a lot. But I am painting in a magnificent studio I have, which is a 6,500 square foot warehouse in what used to be a terrible part of town, with the Panthers across the street and Hell's Angels bar one block down. And therefore, it was really cheap. And so I just go into my studio and work from my photographs. I have not done plein air stuff for a long time. It's difficult to have the light change as the day progresses, and my paintings take several weeks each, at least, to make. There are many layers of paint, and so what starts as an underpainting may have 6 or 7 layers above it, and that takes studying that is not likely to happen when you're out painting with the place around you. I work almost exclusively with oils, and that's because they're so workable and they allow so many subtleties. I did do a few pieces for this painting, the small, affordable ones that are done with acrylic, And there's a new kind of acrylic that allows you to adjust the paint over and over for many hours, which didn't used to be true. So I did do the small ones with some brand new paint, and it was fun. But I am really, it's sort of like, do you like stick shift or automatic? Oil is the stick shift where you can do anything. Acrylic is more like automatic, where things are shortened. When I first started, I did not want to be a painter. I didn't want to be an artist. I wanted to be my dad, who was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And my mother was a very serious artist, as were numerous female ancestors. So I fought being an artist. And when I finally started, just because I met such nifty people through my mother, I started as an abstract artist, which was not popular, and then it became popular. And then I started going into people, and I was interested in portraying people with different colored skin, not realistic. Some of them were bright green and red, unlike Native American red. So I wanted to talk about universalities. And then I took a drive trip up to Alaska with my best friend from college and our two fellas, and a new dog, Spot. And the landscape was so overwhelmingly beautiful. And I just couldn't help myself. My work changed from that just extravagant, wonderful camping trip. One of my most recent paintings I did just before this show is one that has a really brilliant sunset. It's actually, the sun is set and you're just seeing the colors. And one of the reasons I did it was because I know there are a lot of local pilots. There have to be. And I wanted to salute them as well. So that painting is all about either just landing or just taking off. To me, it's just taking off, and it's called A Riders in the Storm. And so it's very brilliantly colored. And that one's a favorite, probably because it's one of the last I've done. And you know, your last one is always your favorite because you think you've done something better, you've learned, and you know, you're excited about it because you've had challenges. Every painting I do has a challenge in it, and where I do something that's considered often against the rules, and then I just say, oh, really? Watch this. And that's the kind of painter I am. I have two paintings in this exhibit that are really dramatic, and they're on the far wall as you enter. And what they're about is wind. So I'm on a curve of the road on one of them, and I'm traveling along, and there's wind in the air. It's not just clouds, it's wind. I find wind fascinating because if you're looking at a landscape and you see clouds, the clouds are influenced by the wind depending on the altitude. So these are fairly low clouds. That was Missouri, was where I took those images. I just see wind. It's like when you look at trees, you see wind because otherwise it's invisible. Now the one that's behind me has a lot of really brilliant blues. And it was a windy day, and you can see this almost like a figure in it, where it's like a box with legs, and or arms and legs flung out, like it's diving in the air. Mm-hmm. And I'm really interested in how the light changes the blues in paintings and you know, when you look out. And I love the indigo of dusk, because there are different stages of dusk. There are even different names for where it is on, like whether it's below the horizon line, the sun that is, and you will see the colors shift. So sometimes it's a cerulean blue, which is an official name for a blue in artwork. And you'll see that towards one level, and then you'll see other blues where it goes into turquoises, or in some of these paintings into ultramarine blues. And it's just wonderful to see how many blues the sky has. Now, I understand in space, the true color of air is what they used to call puce, but it's actually tan, or, you know, because it's supposed to be tan when it has light rather than a deep blue. I don't know. I haven't traveled in space, and I'm a little bit too old to do so, but I encourage anyone who gets to do it. I would like to. Sometimes people ask me about my technique, and what I do is I will start with either, depending on whether I have black gesso or white gesso on it, I will start with a line where I just draw on the canvas. I've done a little tiny cartoon of what I think is important in the painting on a piece of paper. And then I draw the lines that most interest me on the canvas. And then I put in basic colors. Now, a number of these canvases are started with black gesso. It's very expensive and hard to get nowadays. And I will draw white lines on it, and then I will fill in, say, an area of blue or an area of grays. And then I will go back. I will quit for the day. Now, my studio is gorgeous. It's a 2-story arched wooden ceiling with big skylights, like they're 6 by 6 feet. And so when the light starts to fade, I have to stop. So in winter, I can only paint like 4 hours. And in the summer, I can paint maybe 7 or 8. So I quit when the light becomes too dull because I don't want to paint in artificial light. It does change your sensibilities. So you could work late at night and then have to go and correct it in the morning, and then you work in the day and you go back and you correct it at night because the light changes and you're not aware of it because your eyes adjust so beautifully. So I will then put on another coat the next day, and I like to be distant from my paintings when I first glance at them. So I will have my easel at a distance from the entryway. I walk in and I see, oh, I like that, or no, that needs changing. And then I will continue to work. So sometimes things change at the last minute even. I may make a mistake where I think I'm finishing it, doing the fine-tuning, as I call it, and then have to go back and change a whole bunch of other things just because I've changed it too much and it doesn't fit anymore. So my process often takes up to 2 weeks of the actual painting, but I will take sometimes 2 or more years of just thinking about an image on how I want to interpret it. So it's sort of like, oh, it's not a medical degree, but it's like going to college, and what you thought you were going to learn and what you do learn is different, and it takes time and thought. Thought is big in my book. I like to think.